Well, hello there. The first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the two-way table. Two-way table is a simple concept, but it is really at the heart of displaying data and, as you're going to see in chapter 5, calculating probability. Let's take a look at a sample problem. We are going to ask a bunch of people, are you a member of the environmental club? And then, do you rent, own, or never use a snowmobile? We want to see if there's any kind of relationship. I think the story behind this survey was done at Yellowstone Park one winter. Okay, so we're going to ask people, are you in an environmental club? Ask them two questions. Are you an environmental club, yes or no? And do you rent a snowmobile or never or own? Two variables. Two categorical variables, right? Why are they categorical variables? Because the answers are not numbers. How tall are you? That's a quantifiable variable. We'll deal with that later. These are categorical variables. So here's our data. 445 people said no to environmental club, never to the snowmobile. 497 said no to the environmental club, but they rent. And 279 said no to the environmental club and they own. Compared to 16 who are a member of environmental club and own the snowmobile. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do with the two-way table though, and I'll tell you this little trick right now, is we're gonna add up those columns and rows. And let's see what happens. 445 and 212, that's 657. We'll put these in blue, okay? Then we'll say 497 and 77, and that's 574. 297 and 16 is 295, and this should add up to 1,596. Now, here's the other thing about a two-way table. The total for the row and the total for the column row, should be the same. So if we add 445, 497, 279, we're going to get 1,221. And then if we add 212, 77, and 16, you should get 305. And certainly, if we add those two together, we're going to get 1,500 and not 96, but 26. Okay, so let's just gather those numbers. And again, what the two-way table does, it allows us to display all of the data we collected. Now, this little example here is going to talk us through and begin to get the thought process of how to interpret and answer questions about these two-way tables. Some of the questions are very straightforward. Let's take a look at 3 questions tonight. Okay? So, here we go. Let's take a look. Question number 1. What percent of people are in an environmental club? This is a very straightforward question, right? How many total people are there? Did you interview? 1,526. How many said yes to being in an environmental club? 305. Done. Pretty straightforward kind of question, right? We call this marginal relative frequency. Why is that? Because it's the percentage at the margin of the yeses. You have 1,526 people, right? Pretty straightforward. The next, what percent of people said yes to the environmental club and own a snowmobile? Can you figure that out? Look in the table. See if you can figure that out for a minute. What percent of people said yes to the environmental club and own a snowmobile? Boom. Did you say 16? I sure hope you did. Now, that would be 16 out of 1,526. Pretty low number. We call that the joint relative frequency. Why is that a joint relative frequency? Because it's measuring two things. Two things. Now, finally, what percent of renters are not in an environmental club? Notice the difference here now. Is my denominator going to be 1,526? No, it's not. Because what am I asking about? What group am I interested in? Just the renters. Do you see the difference between the first two questions and the third question? The first two questions say what percent of all the people. This one is what percent of the renters. So the renters, there are 574. What percent are not in an environmental club? Okay? What percent are not in an environmental club? Okay? So renters, not in the club, 497. This is an example of conditional frequency. Why is this conditional? This is conditional because there's a condition on the total. I don't want all the people. I just want the ones that rent. So, relative, joint, conditional, or sorry, marginal. Marginal, joint, conditional. Now, the bottom line is, do you need to know those words? No. Do you need to know how to answer those questions? Yes. And that's what we're talking about tonight here with two-way tables. We're going to present all kinds of data in two-way tables, and we need you to be able to understand and answer the questions. What are the most tricky? The conditional ones, right? What percent of people who've never owned a snowmobile join an environmental club? What percent of people who are in an environmental club rent a snowmobile? Whoa, is that different? Yes, it is. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So this is a two-way table. It is a way to display data from two variables with the numbers in the middle. And notice that the row and the column both add up to the total number of people.